that he send the email now. Not that he sends. It is essential that he send it now. Right? That is because it is the subjunctive. It is not the normal verb. So here it changes that we say, for example, it is essential that he be there, not essential that he is there. What's the difference between is and be? They're the same word, but it's a different grammar. So the same thing, just like in English, the verb will actually change from one thing to another thing. Same thing in Arabic, it will change. But in Arabic, it's very easy. This is random, right? It changes from I was to I were. How would you even know that? How do I know that? I just hear it. I've heard it so many times, and that's correct English is incorrect English. This is formal English, this is spoken English. That's just how I know it. But for Arab, it's going to be easy. What's going to happen is the verb, for example, ya'kulu, he eats, will change to ya'kulu, ya'kula, or ya'kul. They'll have three signs as well. So we'll learn specifically, you by default have a dhamma, just like the noun, and it can have a fatha with certain things that will come before it, and can have a sukoon as well with certain things that come before it. But it's much more predictable than English. English is very confusing, and you have to learn a lot of things, right? And so if you were learning Spanish, Spanish is easy, right? It's not. Because in Spanish, you're going to have to do the same thing, but the word will be totally different, right? So I remember, for example, learning the verb to go, right? Ir in Spanish, right? And it was something like you say, for example, you thought that I was going, totally different. It has nothing to do with the word ir. It's like fuere. Like what? Like it's actually really difficult. Like you have to memorize different, you're going to have to memorize present, future, past, and then for each of them 3 things. Or 12, I think it's like a total of 12 different things. So you think it's easy because so many words are similar, right? Mucho tráfico is easy, but it's not actually that easy. It's actually really hard. Whereas Arabic is actually very easy because it's very systematic. The grammar, learning Arabic grammar and understanding it is way easier than English or any other language because it's very systematic. It doesn't have crazy changes. Right? And so that's great. You're gonna say by default as a dhamma, there are certain particles that will come and have a fatha, certain particles that will come and have sukoon. That's it. Very easy. Just like the noun. The noun will be like this: Zaydun, inna Zaydan, fi Zaydin. Easy. You know what to do. It's very simple. It's very systematic.
All these connector words like inna, fi,
Yeah.
bi.
But the system. So that, again, if you tried again talking computer language, the data needed to know English is tons, because it's so random. Whereas in order to know Arabic, you can learn it. You can learn it in a weekend. One of my teachers, he learned all this, the whole thing in a weekend. Yeah, the whole thing in a weekend. He's Indian as well. Smart kid, smart person. He was 16. Yeah. You can do this in a weekend, definitely. It's a 40 hour. 40 hours is right. Before exams, 2 20-hour days, right? I remember writing an essay, took me 50 hours. I didn't sleep for 50 hours writing an essay. Yeah, I didn't sleep for 2 days. Can't wait, insane. But anyway, so it's not that complex, right? Sorry?
Was that your college essay?
What did my college?
Was that your college essay? College application essay?
No, it wasn't college application. No, it wasn't. It was just high school. High school. Never got to high school. But a lot of this stuff is not. The system is simple. English is a nightmare. English. How do you get good at English? Watch TV. That's how it is. Exposure. Just watch hours and hours of TV. That's how you get good at English, because it's random, right? But otherwise, how do Afghans know Hindi? Bollywood, right? So you just watch hours of Bollywood, and you understand. And then there'll be certain grammatical rules that you know, because you heard it so many times. But Arabic is like, it's not that complex. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, put in the data, here we go. Very simple, very simple. It's actually much easier, much more systematic than many other languages. Tons of other languages. A book like more complex than this is, a book more complex than this in 1 weekend. It's very small, but it's very terse. Terse means a lot of information, because it's a list. If I say, for example, here you go, here's this list, here's this. If I just give you a list, I can give you 10 lists, and that's it. Whereas in English, how many lists are you going to have to do? You can't, because every single verb is going to be different. This has an exception, and this has an exception, and this has an exception, etc. Okay, Bismillah. So let's look at unit 10 then, inshallah. So unit 10 we have already seen. We have already seen unit 10. And unit 10 deals with the of structure in Arabic. Okay, how do you say of? Okay. And so how do you say of in Arabic? You do two things. Number one, take off al and your tanween from first word to put second word into genitive. That's it. Now, does a word normally not have an L or a tanween? Is that normal? In Arabic, a word, for example, bait, is it normal to find the word bait without an L and without a tanween? No. That's not a, so in, that's like an unstable, right? You know, like in chemistry, like an unstable compound, right? Like ozone or something like that, right? It's not normal to have the word bait in Arabic. You could either say baytun, a house, or al-baytu, the house. You can't just have bait, that doesn't exist. So when you just have baytu or bayti or beta, it's saying of because it's unstable. It's not al and it has no tanween, right? So it's already an unstable word, okay? So I say baytu, baytu, there's no al, no tanween, and then zaydin. So that means the house of Zayd. So this has in the genitive, this has no al tanween, that means it means of. That's how you say of in Arabic.
Genitive could be in or e or.
It could be ina, for example, this example, sayyaratu, the cars. Sayyaratu, the cars of al-Muslimin, al-Muslimin, al-Muslimina. So this went into genitive with ina, but it's genitive, right? It's not una. And this was sound feminine plural. But the same system. No al, no tanween, genitive. That means of. That means the cars that belong to the Muslims. The cars of the Muslims.
More than.
That's plural. And that's plural. Both are plural. Yeah. But that doesn't matter if it's plural or not. It can be anything. It could be sayyaratul muslimin. Imagine that all the Muslims have one car. Why not? All the Muslimina. Muslimina. That's plural. But the point is this word is genitive. That's the ina is not una. Okay, it's genitive. Right? So simple as that. Cut off the no al tanween, put this one in genitive, that means of. That's all that's happening.
Can it be like sayyara?
Yeah, but that would mean, so this means the cars of the Muslims. If I say sayyaratu muslimina, that would mean some cars of some Muslims. It's indefinite. It means some cars that belong to some Muslims. Does that make sense? Because now it's no longer the. So this is the Muslims. But now I'm going to say Muslims. So this is, so cars of Muslims, i.e. some cars that belong to some Muslims. It's still of, but it's just not the anymore. Here? If I put an L here, you can't put an L here. Zayd, no, because you can't put as Zayd now, because a proper noun, you use a proper noun, you can't say like, it's like saying the John. His name's John, not the John. That's kind of fun, right? That's like the Sam, right? It'd be like Zayd. Zayd is a name. Right. Right. Go ahead. Good question. There's no reason why to do dots. Muslimina. Yeah. So it could also be definite. For example, su'alu talibin. Right. a question of a student. Sorry, it's writing it kind of funny like this. So su'alu talibin. So this word has no al, no tanween. This word has genitive. That means of. A student, a question of a student. A student's question. You could say a student's question or a question. The of comes from the fact that I didn't write of, that's true, but it comes from the fact that this has no al, no tanween, and this has in the genitive. You say if I say a student's question, like this, you mean? Yeah. Yeah.
Question of student.
Yeah.
So that's what the word means. Question.
Yeah, a question of a student, or you could translate it as a student's question. So notice that's how we do it in English, apostrophe S. So apostrophe S is in reality the grammatical sign. It is the genitive or the whatever. So that's why we put apostrophe S, or we change it from he to his. We're actually doing the same thing. It's the same grammatical thing. We don't think it as grammar. What do you mean? It's not. We don't memorize grammar. That's just how you say it. But it is actually a grammatical thing happening. That's a sign that says this is X of the Y. That's how we say it. So in English, you could say, the house of Charles, or Charles is, okay, let's come, John's house or the house of John. It's the same.
Check on that. Sayaratul where the Muslimina.
Mm-hmm.
So Sayaratul is car, right?
Cars, plural, because it has an L. So sayyara would be like this. This is sayyara. That's car. This is sayyarat, cars. So the cars of the Muslims. So this is plural. But I could have this sayyaratul mu'mineen, the car that belongs to the believers. Why not? No. Yeah, I can have, for example, Abu, the father of mu'minina. I'll put salihina, for example, salihina. That would mean the father of some righteous people. Some righteous people's father.
Even the second Sayaratul Muslimina.
Yeah, but that would change the meaning. It would mean the cause of some Muslims as opposed to the Muslims. But so it is not a condition. So all you have to do is the second word could have an L or no L. It doesn't matter. The only condition is genitive. And this word could be anything. It could be nominative, accusative, genitive. Doesn't matter. Right. So this first word might change. Why not? Right. Hada, I say hada baytullahi. This is the house of Allah. Ra'aytu baytallahi. I saw the house of Allah. Ana fi baytillahi. I am in the house of Allah. Why not? The first word, the only condition of the first word is no al, no tanween. That's the only condition. Otherwise, you want to change the number, change gender, change doesn't matter what it is. As long as the first word does not have an al or tanween. That's how we get the of. Yes?
So, for example, there's so many examples, the night of power, like they live to the pleasant.
Yeah.
So if you switch the L, you say
You mean, say it again. You want to say El Laylatul Al Qadr?
Or yeah, build L on power.
Al Laylatul Qadr like this?
Yeah.
Like this? This doesn't mean anything. This is like saying, were, we. That's not a sentence. It's like you just put words together in a non-grammatical way. Yeah. It doesn't mean anything.
Night, not night of the power, or a night of
Laylatul Qadrin. Laylatul Qadrin.
no, night.
So Laylatul Qadrin. This would mean a night. And so an important thing to note is it's not called the night of power. Okay? So that's a mistranslation. Qadr does not mean power. Qadr has two translations. It's either worth or destiny. So Laylatul Qadr means the night of destiny or the night of worth. Like it's worth a lot. That's not Laylatul Qudra. Qudra is power, right? You say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Qadir, He can powerful, right? It's not late. So that's a I don't know where that came from. Somebody translated it, it just became popular, right? But Laylatul Qadr, so it's the night of worth or the night of destiny.
So grammatically makes sense. Like, okay, let's say in English, right? Let's say night of the power, big power. So like.
Yeah, so night of the power, it is the night of the power, but we just dropped the word the. It is still the, right?
I mean, like if you move like if you take the in the beginning and put it before the power.
So in Arabic, you can't do that. Yeah, so what you're trying to do is you are trying to, it only merges through that way. It comes as the of. If you put an L in the beginning, it no longer merges and it doesn't have the of relationship anymore. Like it doesn't work anymore. Okay? So whenever you have of, like my name, Fariduddin, Faridu, there's no L and no tanween. If I say Faridun ad-dini, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't actually merge anymore. Right? So it's just like chemistry. Everyone's familiar with an unstable compound, right? So you're going to get a reaction, right? So we have, why is it that, for example, you use ozone to disinfect something? Because it's not balanced, right? Ozone is like A3, right? O3. So it should be O2. O2 would be a stable oxygen, but O3 is not stable. So it's trying to get something. So this is like this. You made it. This is now a stable word, right? So then there's no bond. There's no need to bond. Al-layla. Al-laylatu. That means tonight. Al-laylatu. Al-laylatu, Laylatul Qadr. Tonight is Laylatul Qadr. Right? That's not it. But here when you say Laylatul Qadrin, right? That means a night of a significance. Or Baytu Zaydin, you're saying a house of something. Okay? Only nouns. You can't do it with the verbs. It doesn't work with the verbs. Nouns. Yeah.
Can it be like
Talibin. No, you cannot do that. No, you cannot change the order. That's correct. Yeah, you cannot change the order. So other words you can change, right? Zaydun daraba amran, amran daraba Zaydun. You can move that around. Here, there's a fixed order, right? By default, you can't have anything under between it by default, and it's always in that order. You can't change the order. So in English, we can swap it. Zayd's house and the house of Zayd. We can change the grammar slightly and change it. You can't do that in Arabic. Yes?
Stop me from jumping way ahead. Like you have this rule for off. So similarly, you have some rule for is, because there's no is in Arabic.
Is? Yeah, there is a rule for is. I'll tell you the same thing. How do I know that you're saying is? You're saying is when the first word is in the nominative and the second word is in the nominative. So I say ana, I say, for example, هذا الرجل فريد. When you said oo and then oo, I understood is. But if I said هذا الرجل فريد, you'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. There's no is. It's not understood that it's is. And so when you say, for example, al-qawmu salihuna, that means the people or these men are righteous. If you said al-qawmu salihina, I would be lost. I don't know what you're saying. You're not saying A is B. The is lost.
So for is, both the words has to be.
Yeah, they have to be nominative. Yeah.
You also wrote
Sayaratul mu'minin. That's correct, yes? So Sayaratul mu'minina or Sayaratul mu'minina, that doesn't matter.
Does it have to be Sayyarat?
No, do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. That's the only two rules. Cars, it depends what you're trying to say. You say that they have many cars or they have one car. That's up to you. Yeah, that's not insignificant to the relationship. What's going on? Yeah.
Can we say by default all words are nominative by default, because it has to have something else.
In this class, you can say that. In this class, you can say that. In 101, in Arabic 101, you can say that. But grammarians, they would not accept that. And should I tell you why? Because who are these grammarians? What do they do Arabic grammar for? Well, why do they bother studying Arabic grammar? Quran. So they're Muslims, correct? So an atheist would say, why am I here? Say, why? I don't know, by default. I exist by default, right? And so because they're believers, they don't believe in default. They're saying, what is the cause? They will always ask the question, what is the cause? For two reasons. Number one, because they believe in Allah. And number two, because they're always trying to look on a deeper level, right? This is that Google interview, that kid who is 16-year-old, he's interviewed by whoever it is, and he challenges the manager who asks him a question, says, they ask him a question, and he says, well, I have a deeper question than that. What about this? And like, wow, we have to hire this guy. So that's how the grammarians think. The grammarians, they think on what we're looking at and 2 levels below it. They're like in kind of like theoretical physics of language. So they don't like that question default. That's that's not a scientific thing. That's like for an engineer, right? When you're doing software engineering or engineering, you don't ask what is an atom. But they ask the question, what is an atom? And then they don't say, well, engineering you say, well, because an electron has a negative charge. That's not, but you can't, in physics, you say, why does an electron have a negative charge? You have to ask the question, why? Right? So in this class, yeah, you can say by default, everything's normative.
Yeah, the reason I was making that
Yeah.
assumption is for a word to be appreciative or
Mhm.
propositive.
There has to be something else.
Genitive, right? You have to have something in the front.
Yes.
Make that over. But for nominative, you don't need anything by default.
Yeah. So practically speaking, by default, that's what I said. So I think in unit 2 or 3, I think in unit 3 he gives a list. He said, he said a word is nominative. He gives 3 reasons. It's like just say default. It's easier to learn. It's easier. But in reality, there's probably like 4 or 5 reasons why it's nominative. Yeah. Okay. So it's that simple. But the problem is, it's just very different to English. Right? It's just very different to English. It kind of exists in Farsi. In Farsi, they use it. We don't have any Farsi, just Khalid, the only Farsi speaker. It exists in Farsi. And they actually call it izafa as well. They call it izafa, right? Right? So you say, you put something, but the genitive appears here, right? So the genitive appears there. I don't know if it exists in. And another confusing thing, and this is why, what's your name again? Atif was showing me his thing, is in modern Arabic, what do I do? What do I do in modern Arabic, in spoken Arabic? So I say su'al talib. So if this is not an adjective, so this could be su'alun talibun, this could be a student that is, a question that is asking for something, because talib means to ask for something, or this could be idafa, so it's a bit confusing. So actually learning spoken Arabic is actually harder, because I don't have any signs. I don't know what's going on. Whereas it's just be su'alu talibin, like, oh, yeah, that's easy. I understand what's going on. And so that's why when he's doing modern standard Arabic and street Arabic, they say, am I describing something or am I saying of? Because you wouldn't see anything. Because you would see this. Right? I would say, for example, su'alu talibin, and then cut it off, and they say su'al talib, which means a question of a student. And then they say su'al sari', quick question. Su'al sari', quick question. And so in spoken Arabic, the same structure. In reality, one is su'alu talibin, the question of a student. The other one is su'alun sari'un. This is describing. That's what you did in unit 3 and 4. Totally different thing. But they've simplified it, and it's actually more complex for the language learner. When you're learning, language is harder. Just like when you're learning, I imagine if you did a course in Brooklyn English, like, it'd be so complex. Like, I want to learn how they speak in 4 weeks. How do they speak in Brooklyn? It'd be really complex. Whereas if you did proper English where you pronounce your R's, it'd be easy, right? Proper, like, but imagine British English is difficult. Like, when do you not pronounce the R? That's hard. That's quite complex. Like, why do you not pronounce the sound? So it's quite complex, right? But anyway, we're looking at the Quran. In the Quran, you're always going to see this, so don't worry about that. Okay? So that is that. Let's have a quick look through just examples in our book. So it gives you from 1 to 8 on page 34. So it says Laylatul Qadri, and it translates it as night of power. And just put a note, it is not night of power. Night of worth, it's worth a lot, right? Or the night of destiny, right? It is not the night of power. Okay, so the night of power, Laylatul Qadri. The sustainer of mankind, Rabbin Nas. So notice in Rabbin Nas, the first word has no L and has no tanween. Rabbi. Okay, but it's in genitive. So it doesn't matter what case the first word is in, doesn't matter. The first word could be genitive, accusative, nominative, doesn't matter. As long as the second word is genitive, that's all. Okay, Sharri Hasidin, notice that, and envious. And so Sharri Hasidin, the second word is indefinite. Sharri Hasidin. Okay, Assalamu alaikum, how's it going? Apa kabar? Okay. The number 4, Lord of the two easts, Rabbul Mashriqaini. Okay. So Rabbul Mashriqaini, the first word has no al tanween, the second word is in the genitive, and because it is dual, it has aini, right? And just a quick note, what are the two easts and the two wests? Right? Remember, the east means the place where the sun rises, and the west means the place where the sun sets. What does that mean? The two places. So when he said Allah in Surah Al-Rahman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned and describes himself as the Lord of the two easts and the Lord of the two wests. Like, what does that even mean? That's one. And so how are there two? So let's imagine if you were on the equator. Would you notice any differences? If you live in the equator, it's sun, day and night are basically the same all the time, and the sun rises at the same place all the time, right? But if you live in Vancouver, or you live far, Calgary or something like that, or you live in what's the end of Chile? Was it like somewhere at the end, right at the end? What's going to happen is you're going to see the days are going to fluctuate a lot, right? I remember growing up, like when I was like 12, I don't know, I guess 16. I think my fasting day was like 8 hours in England, right? 15 years later, it's suddenly the day is 22 hours. My mom was fasting 22 hours in Scotland, right? That means 22 hours, right? So what happens then is the day becomes shorter and longer, and the sun rises in different places, right? So when you're up here, when you're on the equator, it kind of shifts like this. But when you're up here, it's going to shift from being, let's say, the sun is going to rise here, and it's always going to rise here. So you have the two extremes of how far it is east, southeast, or how extreme it is east, northeast, right? So when you see these two extremes here, and where it sets here and here, okay, these are the two extremes of where it's going to rise and set, okay? So in is it summer and winter? No, not summer and winter. In the spring and autumn equinox, that's when you're going to have the two extremes, how far east it is and how far north it is and how far south it is. Okay, and you'll see that when you go down here or up here. Okay, so in Mecca, Medina at that time wasn't that big, but they noticed it, right? But it wasn't that big because they're not that far away from the equator. But the further you go from the equator, it's going to be a big change, right? How far east and how far north and how far south it is. Okay.
What is the two east? Basically, I'm always curious about.
Yeah, the two east. That's it. The two extremes of how far it rises. Right. So the one who is making this big difference. So if you imagine if you were, you live in a world where you live with the elements, stars, moon, tide, sun. Who Allah saying, I am the one who is controlling this whole system, and the one who makes big differences, right? And they're actually quite different. They are quite important to us, obviously. We don't really notice it immediately, but they're super important to us, right? The tides are very important to us. Okay. So the point is that. So then Rabbul Alameen, so Ina ending. Rabbus Samawati, so genitive. Rasula Rabbika, the two messengers of. So notice in number 7, the jewel drops its noon. So the noon at the end of the jewel, Rasulani, is a bit like the tanween. So the tanween has to be dropped and become unstable. Similarly, Rasulah has to be dropped. Rasulani, the noon has to be dropped to become unstable so that it merges with the second word. Okay, Rasulah as opposed to Rasulani, right? So that's a bit complex, and you're not going to see that very much at all. And then number 8 as well, ظَالِمِي أَنفُسِهِمْ, the wrongers of themselves. So ظَالِمِينَ, the noon is dropped, and it becomes ظَالِمِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. Right? Similarly, if I said the Muslims of Mecca would be Muslimi Mecca, not al-Muslimina or al-Muslimina. It just be Muslimi Mecca. Okay.
Context of the word, right? Rasulani means both, right? We know that. But in this case, when you say Rasula Rabbika,
It means the two messengers.
yeah, but when we read through it, we don't know whether it refers to both, right? Because I understand the context why the noon was dropped, because to give the off significance. But it just, as a layman, I just read through it. I will not say it is true, right? I will not know, because there is no Rasulani.
No, but the alif is telling me. So that doesn't look like a normal word. Rasulah is not a normal word. It's not Rasulu or Rasula, it's Rasulah. So it looks odd. It looks like something's missing.
That L is with the
Yeah, so that one's, yeah, so it's normally like this, Rasulani, and now I've dropped that noon. This still looks like Jew. Still looks like something that is not normal. It's not saying Rasulu. If it said Rasula, that's different. But this is Rasulah, so there's still something that looks different, that looks not normal. Take the tanween off.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. This tanween, what is the tanween? Is a noon. Tanween means to put a noon at the end of something. And so this noon, this tanween here, the noon at the end of Rasulani is a bit like a tanween. It's not exactly a tanween, but it's a bit like a tanween. It behaves like a tanween. Yeah. That doesn't matter. Whether the first word has a L or not doesn't matter. So the first word can't have an L or tanween. The second word may or may not. It doesn't matter. Yeah. And in reality, Rasula Rabbika is in reality 2 ofs in a row. So it's saying, so if you look at the word Rabbi, has no L, no tanween, correct? The second word is ka, which is also in the genitive. So it's saying, they're saying the 2 messengers of the Lord of you. It's an of, right? Okay, so ظالمي أنفسهم. And so this is very important. I just want to stop on number 8. Is it possible to wrong anybody apart from yourself? Can you wrong anybody other? So Atif, for example, is texting while driving. He smashes the back of my car. I'm like, dude, what's your problem? I get out of the car and I'm like, bro, I got a kid in the car. What's your problem? I just came back from traveling. Like, I don't need this. And da. He's like, I'm really sorry. So I raise my voice like, well, you better be sorry, and I'll make you sorry. So he wronged me by crashing into my car and not being careful, and I wronged him by being rude. Correct? Incorrect. He wronged himself. I wronged myself. That's it. You can't wrong anybody but yourself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you a gun, and the gun can only do one thing: shoot yourself. He said, here's a gun, don't shoot yourself. And if you shoot yourself, I will be very upset with you because you're special to me. Right? Like my other son, Abdul Razak, he has an itch. Right? He was always scratching. So I get angry with him. And why am I angry with him? It's because it's like, you're my son. He doesn't understand. It's like, Dad's shouting at me because something I did. It's like, you're my son. Like, don't hurt yourself. Right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He's made it's impossible. You can't wrong anybody. Not possible. You can only wrong yourself. So don't be upset when somebody wrongs you, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined that thing anyway. Just be careful when you wrong yourself. Why didn't you pray? Why did you get angry? So the car is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a real car. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you this toy, which is called a car. It's playing a game. And He's going to say, when the guy drives into you, how are you going to react? So you just wronged yourself by getting angry. You can't. Understand the situation. You can only wrong yourself. Nobody can wrong you, right? Kids being killed in Israel or Palestine. You can't harm me. If I'm doing what is right, you can't harm me. You take my life away and I die at 5 years old, or die at 55 or 105. You can't harm me. Nobody can take something away from you. But you can take it away from you. So be careful about it. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what is it? إنا عرضنا الأمانة على السماوات والأرض والجبال فأبين أن يحملنها وأشفقن منها فحملها الإنسان إن الإنسان كان ظلوما جهولا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we gave this offer of the amana. Are you going to be responsible and live a life with La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offered it to the universe. He says no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offered it to the mountains. No. They were too scared. We can't do that. It's too difficult. Who carried it? Man. Man carried it. So man, you're greater than the heavens and the earth. You're more important than all these things. You're more noble than that, right? Mikhail gets ticked off all the time, like, you're the oldest. Like, why did you put me in charge? Like, that's a privilege, right? That actually makes you better, like, you're responsible. You're responsible. It's like, I hate being responsible, yeah? But it makes you better. Being responsible makes you better. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna al-insana kana dhaluman jahula, right? That you are dhalum. The dhalum means somebody who wrongs themselves. Jahul, somebody who doesn't know who they are. Right? So you're like a diamond that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, look after yourself. What did you do? You threw yourself on the street outside and rubbed yourself on the ground. Like, why'd you do that? You were nicely cut diamond, you were so special, you wronged yourself. So you can only wrong yourself. Don't be annoyed with anybody apart from yourself. Jahul. So jahil, somebody who's rude and ignorant. Jahul, someone who's rude and ignorant to themselves. You don't even know who you are. This is the problem with mankind today. You don't know who you are. You don't know how special you are, right? And so like, why would you do that? And so you abase yourself. You can't wrong anybody else. You can only wrong yourself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it impossible. So Yawm al-Qiyamah, everything's going to be put black, right? So you can rip this book into pieces, and in 2 seconds, Allah's going to put it back. So who did you wrong? You wronged yourself by ripping up my book. That was all. And so it's a huge raha, it's a huge relief. Nobody can wrong you. Nobody can take something away. Oh, if only that person hadn't done this, I could have got this. Don't think like that. Think like, what have you done to wrong yourself today? Did you pray? Did you focus in the prayer? Did you do this? Did you do that? Did you sell yourself short? And that's all. Focus on what you're doing. You can't, because nobody else can wrong you. Only you can wrong yourselves, right? Okay. Right. And then it gives us some key words. A'udhu, I seek refuge, right? Waswasa yuwaswisu, to whisper. Waswas is somebody who's whispering all the time. Sadr and sudur, which means the heart and the chest. And then alf, which means 1,000. Alf. Okay? Someone asked, I think one of the Sahaba asked another Sahabi, they said, what was it? They said, oh yeah, in Persia I saw alf, I saw 1,000,000 of such things. He said, is there more than 1,000? Like, meaning in the desert, everything's small in numbers, right? Think about, Badr, the kind of numbers of people that are fighting, what, like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000. They've never seen 1,000,000 before, right? Suddenly you see 1,000,000. That's a crazy number. Like, you're living in a very small world where at that times, like, there's no word for 1,000,000 in Arabic. Because they didn't have that kind of thing. You have to say 1,000 of 1,000. Right? There's no word for it. Okay, so Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Let's look at, try and find an of relationship in sentence number 1. Huh? It's too late to go, Mikhail. Bismillahi. So Bismi. Give me the 2 words that are of. And Ismi and Bismi. So we have Ba and Ism. So Ba and, so these are actually 2 words right in the beginning. Bismi is 2 words. Bi, which means in, and Smi, which means name. That's not, yeah, so, but it's name of Allah. So Bismillahi, right? So we have, let's write this up here. There's no, yeah, Bismi, B. So there's a Ba, and then Ismi, and then Allahi.
There is no word in
Here, here's the word in. B. The Ba means in. It means in, has other meanings as well. This means name, and this means Allah, of course. Okay? Ismi, does it have an L or tanween? No. Does the word Allah have a kasra? Yes. So therefore these two come together and they merge to make an of relationship. Name of Allah. I could say Ismullahi, Ismallahi, Ismillahi, it all mean the same thing, of Allah. Why is there a kasra here? Because of this. Right? But that's irrelevant to that relationship. That doesn't matter. Whether it was Ismullahi, Allahu, the name of Allah is Allah. Or I say, Dhakartu Ismallahi, I mentioned the name of Allah. It doesn't matter. The point is it's of.
We have a following word as
Genitive.
genitive, right? But in this you say be Allah here. So
No. This word is affecting this word. Bismi is affecting the word ismi. That's it.
so it's always following
Yes.
word, it is not
Yeah. It's not that it's affecting this. No. It can't do that. It can't jump over like that. It's always written to that. And here, because it's used so much, we drop the alif. Normally wouldn't do that. Normally would not. You would do it like, you would say, for example, you would write it like this, Bismi. There'd be no space, but it'd be like this. But because Bismillah is written so much, they just drop the alif. And it's worth noting that we write the Quran as they wrote it in that time, even if it's not standard Arabic. So the way we write today is slightly different, because they didn't really have a standard back then. They didn't really have a standard. Just like in English, when was English standardized? Like about 500 years ago. Like how do you write a word, for example, right? Is it like this or is it like that? That's why we have differences between English and American spelling. Because when they standardized it, there's differences. Like do you write it with a Z or do you write it with an S? It's like, well, we all pronounce it in the same way, right? Civilization, I say civilization, Americans say civilization. But I write it with an S and he writes it with a Z, right? And so that's standardizing it. It was about 500 years ago. That's when English was kind of standardized, right? Similarly in Arabic, when they're writing the Quran, there wasn't a standard way of writing. In fact, there wasn't even a standard way of speaking, because they're speaking lots of different dialects. And so it's written in a certain way, and we just keep it like that, even if it's not standard, even if it doesn't make sense. So there's certain things we're like, that doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? And we just say, that's how they wrote it, right? And there's a debate among the ulama, is that part of the miracle of the Quran, or is that something else? Some say yes, some say no. So some people say yes, and we have to look for the secret. Why is it like this? Like, why would you do that, right? Like, why would you change that rule there? And maybe there's something we can learn. And others say there's nothing we can learn, but we just want to be conservative and keep to how they wrote it, right? That's what they call the Uthmanic script. How they had the time of Sayyidina Uthman, and that's it. That's how we're going to write it, right? And so you're not going to come along and change that and say, oh, we should put the alif, because that's how we do it today. No, I'm going to change it. No, you can't do that, right? But there are certain things that may be confusing, or like the word alayla is always written like this. Alayl is written with one lam, like this. That's how it's written in the Quran. Today we write it with two L's. An L for the L, and an L for Layla. Like that, that's how we write Al-Layla. In the Quran it's written like that, and we just write it the same way. The second word could be a pronoun, yes. Like for example, when I say your car, sayyaratuka. You don't really think about it as an of relationship, but it is. Sayyaratu, no al, no tanween, ka. Yeah. So same thing. Attached pronoun. So we learnt that as attached pronoun, and we use it practically as my, but in reality it's
the second word
could be a pronoun.
Don't have to be genitive, but can be an attached pronoun.
It's going to be genitive. But you just can't see the genitive. It is genitive.
Because ka is not genitive.
Yes.
It
Ka's
has
genitive.
the E.
It's still genitive though. Because pronouns, remember, pronouns don't have signs. So a word could be in a state, but you just can't see it. For example, if I said, Sayyaratuka wa Zaydin. So that's
Car of
your and Zayd's car. That doesn't even sound right in English. Like, how do you even say that? That's a strange, the car that belongs to you and Zayd. But I said, notice I said Zaydin. Why did I say Zaydin? Because Zaydin was copying ka. Okay, well, what state was ka in? Ka was in the genitive state. Oh, so you can actually see states. Sometimes the state it's hidden, but you put something else after it and it comes out. Yeah, so the word, so pronouns, yeah. So pronouns do have states, but you just can't see them.
so who
Exactly, huwa is a nominative. Huwa, yeah.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, so ana, when I say ana is in the nominative, yeah. But you just can't see it. It has no sign. So later on, we're going to see a word could have a state and it could have no sign. So the default on all nouns is that they have states and signs. An exception to them is pronouns and some other words. The default in verbs is they have states but no signs. And their exception to those are present tense verbs. We're going to see signs.
Attached pronoun is always genitive.
Attached pronoun, no, because it could be a nominative, it could be accusative. It could be accusative, for example, if I say, Ra'ituka, I saw you. So the ka has no sign, but it's in the nominative, it's in the accusative. It's an attached pronoun, and it's, yeah.
So attached.
Yeah. So attached.
Also have two forms, like ka.
Yeah, ka, and so, yeah, and has different signs. But the point is, all pronouns, because it is a noun, it has a state. It's going to have some kind of state. But does it have a sign? No, it doesn't have a sign. So all pronouns, so pronouns do not have signs, but they do have states. Yeah. But a key concept is nouns always have always have a state. And so sometimes we'll see a word that looks like a noun, and we realize it is not actually a noun. We'll learn that later on in like level 4. You'll see a bit like, that looks like a noun. It's a noun that we use, yeah, but it has no state. So that actually means it's not a noun anymore. And particles never have states.
What do you mean by states? Like the genitive.
It's one of those three. You couldn't put it in any of those three. And then you realize, hang on a minute, it's not actually any of these things. Yeah. So in the Quran, it'll be written like this, with one lam, right? It'll be written like this, right? And obviously, as we know, was it written with a like this? That's how it was written. No dots whatsoever. Okay, so that's how it's written, no dots. So we recite Quran. Now, when we recite Quran, we add things, we don't change things. So we're gonna say, put a shadda, put a fatha, put a thing, put a sukoon, put a fatha, make a difference, right? But as for adding a letter, we don't do that. That's why we write, for example, Maliki Yawmiddin. It's Malik like this. That's how it's written. But we pronounce it like this. Maliki Yawmiddin. Right? We don't actually add that alif. We don't write it like this. Maliki Yawmiddin. If you look in the Fatiha, they always write it this. And have a dagger. So why have a dagger alif? Because we're not going to change anything. We're not going to add things. Right? So the point is, so here, for example, should we change that? We do not change it. Leave it as it is. Right? Okay. Okay, khair. So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, that was there. First, did we skip the first one? فاستعذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فاستعذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Oh, I'm sorry, my page went back, I was confused. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Number 2, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Where is our of relationship there? Rabbil Alameen. Rabb has no al, no tanween. The second word is in the genitive. Right? And Rabb is a very important word, okay? So, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. You only know something, you only value something when that thing is taken away from you. Okay? And so, many of us, or all of us, I wasn't a Christian, none of us were Christians. As a Christian, life is terrible, right? There's lots of really, really negative things about Christianity you don't know about unless you're actually a Christian. So one of these things is, for example, the whole thing about guilt, a whole thing about many problems they have. But a lot of the language is nothing to do with, they're not connected to their words. So they have to understand, like, as a Christian, their New Testament is in which language? Yeah, in Greek. Yeah, so Greek is closer to Hindi than it is to the language spoken by Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. So the language is not like, if, let's say it's true. Let's say, for example, the Greek was, you lose the meaning. Like imagine you're speaking, you hear a joke, right? And I record it in German. It's just lost immediately, even if you tried your best, right? And so, what's it called? What was I going to say? So the word Rabb, what does it mean, right? When you translate it as Lord, you lose like everything, right? Lord does not have a nice meaning, right? Who could think about, have you heard of lords and ladies in England? right? Lord so-and-so, right? That's like, what does that mean? Like some wealthy guy that can tell you what to do, right? That's what it means. Like, and how did you get there? Well, because my dad was rich, right? So that's my Allah, right? And we say the year of the Lord, right? They have that in, like, a Christian say, year of the Lord, right? Anno Domini, they say, right? Anno Domini, right? Anno Domini. Something like domine, domini, I can't remember the ending exactly. Dominant, what does that mean? Is that a nice word? To dominate somebody? That's not a nice word. So they don't actually have nice words, right? Like a lot of these words, like that's not a nice word. Lord in English is not a nice word. Domine is like basically this thing above me. Rabb does not mean that, right? If you say Al-Qahar, yeah, that's a hard word. Al-Qahar, the one who is always forcing other people and winning. One of Allah's names, that's true. Okay, Al-Jabbar, but we begin, right, Allah has harsh words or tough words, that's true. But normal word for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is for you to say, Ya Rabbi. What does that mean? It's a very beautiful, soft word. Rabb is from the word, right? You have the word Rabib, who is like, Rabib is like the child that is your adopted son, when you're looking after. You don't owe him anything, but you're nice to him anyway. You have the word tarbiyah, right? Education. You have, what else? I can't get the general sense of here, but it means, for example, means to care for something, to nurture for something, right? To be invested. Rabbul Mal is the investor, right? To invested in something. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cares about you. When you say Ya Rabbi, it means the one who cares about you. When you say my Lord, that doesn't really, Mikal, that doesn't mean the one who cares about you. That means the one who's above you, right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above you, but He cares about you. There's a soft, nurturing sense, right? So you can say like nurturing provider, right? He could sustainer, right? He puts three, right? Sustain, but even sustainer is not exactly, that's not the same thing, right? So here is, for example, does the flow of electrons sustain the use of a computer? Yes. Does the flow of electrons care about the computer? No. So sustaining somebody and caring about them is not the same. So Allah, when you say Rabbi, that means Allah cares about you, right? So often in the Quran, the word Rabb is used in a context of mercy and kindness, and the word Allah is used for august, right? وَيَذَرُونَ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَرَاءَ ظُهُورِهِمْ. They throw Allah's book behind their back. Whoa, that's a bit, even the way we pronounce it. We should pronounce it Allah, right? We should pronounce it Allah, because it's just a lam with a fatha should be la. You say Allah to show how great it is. It's changed, right? There used to be a tribe that was called Numayr, and they used to pump themselves up by saying Numayr. They're like, we're not Numayr, we're Numayr. Like, we're tough, right? And so Allah, we pronounce it. Some of the Arabs will say Allah as well, right? But you say Allah, it's like a bit scary. It has that jalali, august sound of it. Not bad, not negative, but like power. But Rabb is not used in that sense. Rabb is not Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. You know, it doesn't mean that. It means the cherishing, nurturing, caring one. That He looks after you, He raises you, right? That's Rabb, right? Rabb, so okay. So where do we get to? So Rabbil Alameen is the caring, nurturing one of all Alameen, of all levels of being, all worlds, right? Okay, number 3, Maliki Yawmiddin. There are two ofs here. So Malik does not mean the one who's invested, right? It means does not have the idea of caring. Malik means owner, right? So that doesn't have a positive sense. Malik Yawmiddin has a negative sense, like, hey, I own you and I'm going to judge you on Judgment Day, so don't mess with me, right? So notice how it starts off, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, and then Malik Yawmiddin. So there's supposed to be contrast. Malik does not have a nice name. That's like scary, like Allah owns you, right? Why do I have to do what you're saying? Because I own you, for crying out loud. Oh, sorry. Okay, that's that contrast, right? So, but Rabb is not Malik. It's not the same word.
So this is two examples, right? Malik
Exactly, yeah. Maliki Yawmiddin, yeah. So Maliki. Okay, no al, no tanween. Yawmi, no al, no tanween. Ad-dini. Okay, so this is an of relationship. How do I know? No al, no tanween. Okay? And this is an of relationship. No al, no tanween. And I can keep going forever. Right? Watch this. Miftahu Baiti Abdi Maliki Yawmid Dini. So the key of, the house of, the slave of, the owner of, the day of judgment. They go on forever. But in reality, follow the system. Each of them is no al, no tanween, genitive. Oh, that's of. No al, no tanween, genitive. That's of. No al, no tanween, genitive. Of. Just follow the system. That's all it is. To get post for it now. Right? And it goes on forever. But it's just a system. The system is, this word has no al, no tanween, this one has a genitive. If I change it ever, and then that's when it's become under. If I had adinu, that means this couldn't merge anymore. If this had al, it couldn't merge anymore. Make sense? But Maliki Yawmiddin, right? And so notice this, but notice now the meaning. How does the Fatiha begin? The Fatiha begins with beauty and you owing something to this beautiful, nice being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is filled with mercy and kindness and generosity, and He's the one who's looking after you. And so you thank Him, but remember you should also fear Him. Right? So remember once I asked to give a khutbah here in the Bay Area, and they told me, I said, on Eid, what should I talk about? They said, listen, just be positive, don't be negative, because people aren't used to negative. It's right and it's wrong. It's right because if you're talking to people, right, you're talking to somebody who just came out of jail. They are still an alcoholic, even though repented. They're still this. They need positive, right? Is the Quran all positive? It's not. Quran is not all positive. Quran is like fear Allah, right? In the khutbah, right, it's a rukn. You have to say fear Allah. You have to use the word taqwa. You don't have to use the word rahmah. Because on the khutbah on Friday, I have to tell you, wake up. Right? The Prophet ﷺ said, if you knew what I knew, you would cry a lot and you would laugh little. Right? But can I say that to everybody? The 15-year-old growing up in California who not used to being told anything negative, right? Is it even at school you can't use a red pen anymore, you have to use right? You're not used to negative. So when you tell them, hey, hell, they get scared. They're like, oh, you're negative. All they know about is you as negative. But this is life, right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Fatiha, what we remind ourselves of is love Allah, thank Allah, fear Allah. Because He is in charge, He owns you, and He owns Judgment Day, and there's no democracy on Judgment Day. You can't say, I vote, I. There's no I, there's no you, there's nobody else, Allah. That's it. Maliki Yawmiddin. He is the one who is in charge of Yawm al-Qiyamah, and there's nothing you can say. Nobody can say anything. Completely. And there will be judgment. Deen means justice. Right? It means a day of judgment. There will be justice. Right? But He's in charge, you're not in charge. That's why then you turn to Allah, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. But you can only turn to Allah and have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you know Him in His beauty and His all power. You've got to know both. You can't be like, oh, I know Allah the merciful. Right? Oh, I know Allah the powerful. Right? You can't know A and B, you have to know both. Allah, you have to know Allah as the one who is looking after you and the one who's going to punish you if you mess up. You have to fear Allah, otherwise you don't have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's when you can have إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Now you're talking to Allah, but otherwise you can't have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many people, they're like, you're too strict, you're too lenient, you're too this, you're too that. They only know the Prophet ﷺ as Nabi Rahmah. That's how they know the Prophet ﷺ. They don't know the Prophet ﷺ, Mawlid, that's it. When you sing a song, that's okay. Do you know the Prophet ﷺ who told you, fear Allah? No, you don't know him. right? So you don't have a proper relationship. You have to have both, right? You have to have both. Someone says they celebrate Mawlid. They celebrate, for example, the Prophet ﷺ. Well, celebrate means value, right? You're going to value something. Well, his message was be happy and rejoice that you're part of his ummah. And he's going to be your lawyer on Judgment Day. And also rejoice and actually apply his lessons and fear Allah and do what is right, right? And so may Allah protect us all. So Maliki al-Fatiha is this full, what's it called? A balanced diet. Has the message, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. Right? And both of these things. Okay. Number 3, 4, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ. Good. So how will I know it's not, if this is not written with an alif, in the Quran, Malik and Malik are written the same way, how would I know which is which? I don't know which is which. So Malik, which means king, and they're written both the same way. In the Mus'haf, they're written like this. One is Maliki Yawmiddin, the other one is the other one is Malikin Nas. How would I know? There was no signs originally. Imagine the Quran was written with no harakat whatsoever. How would you know what to say? They both have the same. They're both genitive. Maliki Yawmiddin has a kasra and Malikin Nas also has a kasra. They're both genitive. So my question is the beginning of the word. I'm trying to find the word itself, not even the grammar. I don't know that it's king or owner. Okay, why can't I be Maliki? Why can't I be Maliki Yawmiddin? Why can't I be the king of Judgment Day? Why not? Yeah, you can. That's also the process of, or that's something else. But my question is, I'm a Muslim. Here's the Quran. You give me this book. I'm just giving you answers now. You just hand the book to me, right? And say, here we go, read this book by yourself. How am I going to know what it is? How am I going to know what it is? I won't. So a very important thing, the deen is through talaqqi. There's no book without a teacher. So they say in the fuqaha, the scholars, they say whoever's teacher is their book, shaitan is his teacher. So how did you study? Oh, I read lots of books. Who taught you? Nobody. Problem, right? Big problem, right? So you have to have a teacher for every single thing. So the teacher doesn't teach you every single thing, but the teacher opens the doors for you. If you come to my house, Khalid's come to my house, you read every single page of that book with the teacher? No, but they open the doors for you so you understand what's going on. Otherwise, you're a big shaitan, right? You become a big shaitan, right? So every single thing is, so for example, Quran, they say this word. So when you study the Quran, you'll be like, in Maliki Yawmiddin, there's 2 ways in reality. The Prophet recited the Fatiha in more than 2 ways. But here you say, Maliki Yawmiddin, king of Judgment Day, which is still scary, or owner of Judgment Day, which is still scary. There's different words, but the Prophet recited both. You will have studied this with the Sahaba, study that with the Sahaba. But here, it's only one, Maliki Yawmiddin. How are you supposed to know that? Through talaqqi. So through direct receiving of knowledge. So the default of every single thing is you study fiqh with a teacher. You study hadith with a teacher. You study Quran with a teacher. And then eventually you understand what's going on. You can do the rest by yourself. But you don't do things by yourself. It doesn't work like that. You end up having huge mistakes. Funny mistakes, but huge mistakes. Right? And it's very important to understand. It's very important to understand that modern world is going away from that. It used to be that you study with somebody, now it doesn't happen anymore. Right? So now even your muftis is going to be asking mufti. I remember there was a muftiya, and she did something that really shocked me. I was confused by it. I don't want to mention what she did, but she did something really confusing. I asked somebody who from the same kind of tradition, she said she studied online. That's impossible. You can't study online. That doesn't exist. Studying online does not exist. You could study, you can meet the person and continue online, but you can't study online. That's not possible because it's like this. You sit with the person, but you eat with the person, you know what's going on. You get told off by the person. I remember right now, I have an image right now walking down the street next to a curb, and I'm telling my teacher, oh, these people, these scholars, they just do copy and paste. All they do is read something and just paste things. He got super ticked off with me. He's like, you have no idea what you're talking about. And I didn't understand it until you start reading more, oh, I get you. right? I remember the same sheikh walking around his house, and I'm like, yeah, but there's little key things that people tell you. Another teacher, a big Hanafi mufti, I asked him a question. He's like, I don't know the answer. I was like, sheikh, how can you not know the answer? I said, don't know the answer. I walked off. Like, I don't know everything. That's a key thing. Somebody puts that in your head. Key little things, that whole concept will change the whole way you are as a person. I don't know every single thing. I cannot answer if I don't know the question. I'm sorry. Right? There are certain key things. So someone was like, where did you study? Online. Where did you study? I was one of 500 people in that classroom. You're people like that, yeah. Who did you study with? Mufti so-and-so. Wow, Mufti so-and-so. Right, did you, right? And I remember I was studying with somebody who was arguably, he was like the unofficial Mufti of Iraq, right? The unofficial Mufti of Iraq. And when I was going to put in my biography, I was going to put him as one of my teachers. And one of my teachers looked at me and said, you didn't really study with him, did you? You attended his classes. There's a difference. Don't put his name down. So I remember key things he said. I remember all sorts of things. I studied things with him. Yeah, but you didn't really study with him. You were in his class. There's a difference. Right? Imam al-Nasa'i will say that. He will say, be very careful. He will say, I heard this hadith from so-and-so while I was listening. Excuse me. Because I wasn't officially in the class. I wasn't allowed in the class. I had to stand behind the pillar. So he's going to be honest. I wasn't allowed in that class. I had to stand by the pillar. So I said, so-and-so I heard when I was listening. I didn't read it to him, nor did he read it to me. Right? So there's a big difference. So this very important thing is you see that in the Quran. How did you know that? Oh, because I studied with somebody. How do you study tajweed? Oh, I did it by myself. Right? So should we do Pakistani tajweed by ourselves? Or Egyptian, for example, if you do Pakistani tajweed, al-lazina, right? Go to Egypt, same thing, al-lazina. They'll say al-lazina. That's how Egyptians, they say it the same way. But it's not al-lazina, it's al-ladina, right? And there's letters that are in the Quran that you can't even write. There's no even way to write it. Like, ihdina zirat al-mustaqim. There's no way to write zirat in Arabic. So that's only learned through studying with somebody, right? And that's the default with every single thing. There is something else. You study a book of fiqh, you study a book of whatever it is, and there are things between the lines that you don't know. You have to study with somebody, have somebody open the door to you, right? But it's very important to understand today's world is deleting that. You're going to go to University of Karachi, you're going to go to University of Medina, you're going to go to University of Azhar, here, there, and it's just like, we want quantity, we want a large number, 500 people, they did this, and just move out, as opposed to one-on-one, right? So for example, someone like, who's a one-on-one, for example, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. In Mauritania, they only do one-on-one. There's no such thing as a class. You go in there, and you memorize 3 lines, and you understand it, and you read it back to them, and it's like, it means this and this and this, and then you go to your students with you, you teach each other, and then the next day you go to the teacher and say, teacher meant this and this and this, right? And it's like you're guaranteed, as opposed to many people, like, oh, Mufti so-and-so, or Sheikh so-and-so, it's like, you didn't study with any individuals. You're not actually part of who's behind you, right? And so the very important thing is who's behind you, right? So you ask, for example, Sheikh Farid Dengal, who am I? It's like, I had one-on-one classes, the Grand Mufti of Jordan, there. That guy there, he can go and say, do you know Farid Dengal? Say, yeah, I studied one-on-one classes, but he was the Grand Mufti of Jordan, right? And I will tell you what I know, I'll tell you what I don't know. Because actually, as opposed to Sheikh Google, right? And there's a lot of people on Sheikh Google today. And they're all over the place. So be very, very careful. That's an example. Malik and Malik, how would you know it? You studied, right? Just like tajweed, apply the rules of tajweed to everything else. How would you study tajweed? Who did you study with? By myself. It's impossible. You can't study tajweed by yourself.
That is the only way.
Yeah. And that's the only way for anything. The default is that, right? But in reality, until with tajweed, you will find things that it's not. Once you get into it, you can see more things, right? You'll see more things in fiqh and everything else. But the default is, every single thing is by default. Who did you study with? We have time left, inshallah.
Are you allowed to say you said something?
Yeah, you could say, oh, I heard so and so say this, yeah. But the difference, I'll give an example. Well, I was working for an Islamic organization, okay, and we had TAs, okay, for this lot. So this TA, right, he's a teaching aid. He says, I'd like to apply for the position of teaching aid, and he signs it off Sheikh so and so. I'm like, why would a sheikh want to be a teaching aid? Like, I'm just confused. And the same person, he was doing a class with me. He couldn't read or write, so I did oral exams with him because he couldn't read or write. He found it difficult to read or write, okay? So like this person who like just passed by doing oral, he's now calling himself sheikh. And then I find out he has a website. And he teaches this and this and this and this and this. So what he's trying to do is trying to do more TA classes in order to get like fake ijazas and to become sheikh so-and-so. Yeah. Or Dr. So-and-so. That's the case. It's like, who are you? Who did you study with? Right? And so you can have this guy like Dr. So-and-so, he studies Sharia out here, but did he study with anybody? No. And so he just has it, he's just himself. So the least you could say, the person can stand up on the minbar and say, community, I am a self-made scholar, and this is my independent personal opinion of what the Quran and Sunnah says. Okay. Now I understand who you are. As opposed to, the deen is this. It's like, hang on a minute. You're not coming out of anywhere. We don't know who you are. Right? So that's very important. Right? So you will always ask, who are your teachers? That's what you ask. Who are your teachers? What do you, as opposed to what your opinion is, right? And you'll be shocked. Sometimes people are very, very intelligent. I know there was a debate between these two scholars once. It's like the guy who's winning the debate, he's way more intelligent, but he's a proper shaitan. Shaitan is very intelligent as well. Intelligence isn't everything. Intelligence isn't everything. So shaitan is way more intelligent than everyone else in this room. Way more intelligent. His processing power, subhanAllah, he can be working on the whole world, right? His experience, his this, his that. And there's lots of people who impress you with their knowledge, with their memorization, with this, and you say, who's your back? Who's backing you? Who's behind you? That's what someone's worth. What's behind you? Where does this thing come from? Right? Yeah.
On the stuff. To call someone like basically we mean that like okay, I have direct contact with them.
No, it's okay. So it's metaphorical. Because when you say my teacher, the point is when you say is who are you? So when you say one of my teachers, like fine, he might have taught you 1,000 things, you didn't understand a single thing, so you can still refer to you as teacher. But you can say, I'm just saying like.
But like we distinguish like these terms, like we say my teacher, like I studied with, right? For example, like
These are not formal. These are not so in hadith specifically. There's certain terms they're going to use. It's not a formal thing. You shouldn't worry about it. But the issue is when you say, for example, like my bio, he studied in the Middle East for 13 years. What did you do for 13 years in the Middle East? Right? Were you studying? Were you working and studying? Right? So like if you say like what full-time study, it's like I'm not going to do full-time study for 13 years. Some people do. Some people do. Some people do 20 years. I know one of my this sheikh I know, like he's like 20 years, mashallah. But there's a difference. A lot of bios, they say lots of things. Right? They say lots of things. Or like it's like
so basically
or it's entertainment. Like let's say, for example, what's our most of our interaction with the deen is YouTube, right? And YouTube is there because you get hits. You don't find people who don't get hits. And you get hits because it's interesting. So maybe the real answer is not the interesting answer. Maybe the real answer is not the entertaining answer. Maybe the real answer was said in Urdu when it was boring, right? I know, for example, there was a sheikh, one of my teachers in Jordan, he said there's a sheikh in England who is very low-key. He says, whatever he says, I say. He's not famous, he's not this, he's not that. He says, because he's not famous, I trust him. It's because everybody else is tied up with loyalty to this and loyalty to that, and they have to agree in this. He's not part of any system. Right, like Sheikh, for example, I said, why was he not the Mufti of Iraq? Because what did he do? He said, I will be the Mufti of Iraq on the condition I don't represent the government and I don't represent this organization or that organization. So he's not the Mufti because he didn't want to represent anybody. He said, I am totally independent of everybody. Right, and so most people, a lot of famous people, right, are there for other reasons. They're there for other reasons. Right, why am I teaching here? Because Khalid knew me from another place. What? Because so basically, Khalid organized this. But maybe Khalid doesn't know everybody. Maybe there's somebody better than me that he doesn't know. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes the way that we have to navigate sacred knowledge is not through hits on Google. It's only going to give us the first, you're going to look through 10 pages of Google, right? You're going to scroll down, how far are you going to go down YouTube, right? And so we want to know is, here's this person, who is he? Who's behind him? What does he represent? Right? And you're going to see lots of people today representing something else. They do not represent tradition. They don't represent anything. They're just them. And the least they could say is, this is my personal opinion. I think Islam is pro-LGBTQ+. This is my personal opinion. This is what I come to through the Quran and Sunnah, through my own things. Okay, at least you are honest, as opposed to Islam allows LGBTQ+. You see the difference? Right? Like, I think we should have a rabbi give a khutbah, personally. Say, okay, that's you then. As opposed to Islam says, Islam, for example, says in the Quran, come to a common word and nobody's applied it for 1,400 years, but now we should do it because we're here and we should have a rabbi and a priest, etc. Right? And so it's very important, just tajweed rules. When you learn more about tajweed, you'll be like, where do these rules come from? Who wrote all these rules? How did it all work? Right? Apply the same thing to fiqh, apply the same thing to aqidah, apply the same thing to everything. You'll be like, oh yeah, I see where you're coming from. As opposed to somebody who has a new tajweed, Egyptian tajweed, Pakistani tajweed. Like, okay. You're going to find huge things that are missing. Huge things because you're not connected. This person is not connected. Right? That's why some people, listen to this logic, some people come along and say tajweed is a bid'ah. Because they can't find a hadith that proves it. Can you see the logic? Like, I can't find a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said Maliki yawmiddin and Maliki yawmiddin. So that's because tajweed came from a different root, not in a hadith. Like, oh, so then they'll try and say, there's no hadith, but there's a bid'ah. Can you see the logic? They'll do the same thing. It's like, yeah, but you're going to find lots of things like that. So, and I don't want to go on a huge tangent. Inshallah, I'll talk about that another time. But the point is, how did I know Maliki yawmiddin or Maliki yawmiddin? I studied with somebody. Same thing. Who did you study with? Who did you study with? Who did you study with? Right? Someone asks you, say, well, I don't know, who should be teaching, who should not be teaching. I want to know who he studied with. That's all. Super quick, yeah.
You say like studied with a teacher, right? But then like the only interaction you had is just like a class, like other.
Yeah, so for example, one-on-one with discussions. So let's say, for example, the Grand Mufti of Jordan right now, if you ask him about me, he'll know who I am. If you ask the Mufti of Iraq, he will not know who I am. Simple as that.
So
Like,
basically, if he doesn't know who you
he
are,
doesn't know my name. He was just polite. Like, I was attending his classes and I would say stuff and he'd be like, just polite, As opposed to, like, he'd repeat stuff, be like, dude, this guy doesn't even know what I'm talking about. And I just observe, I benefited a lot, right? I benefited from what he was saying, but I'm not his student, right? As opposed to other people, be like, you ask that person, who's this guy? Like, I don't know. So someone says, yeah, I have ijazah from Mufti so-and-so. Does he know who you are? No. Exactly. I remember one of my teachers in Tajweed, he had ijazah and 10 qira'at. All of it was off. All of it. Exactly. So anyway, may Allah protect us all. Al-lazina. Okay, so A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas, Malikin Nas. So there we have two. But is it the same as Maliki Yawmiddin? Or is it different? So let's compare Maliki Yawmiddin and Rabbin Nas, Malikin Nas. What's the difference? Exactly, right? So this is, to use chemical terms in chemistry, one is a mixture and one is a compound, right? So Maliki Yawmiddin is a compound, right? This and this. This is merged with this and this is merged with this, right? Whereas that's a mixture, right? Rabbin Nas, that's a compound. That's a kind of compound. Malikin Nas is a compound, but the two of them are not compounded. It's not connected. It's just a mixture. It's just next to each other, right? Okay. Ilahin Nas min sharril waswas. So Ilahin Nas, same thing. Min sharril waswas al khannas. Sharril waswas, the evil of the whisperer. Okay, and a very important thing, subhanallah. My wife was shopping the other day and she was in a mall. She said, dude, I hate malls. So what did I send her? The hadith. أبغض البلاد إلى الله أسواقها. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the most hated of places to Allah are its marketplaces. It's not haram to have a mall, right? It's not haram to sell and buy and sell, but it's the most hated of places, right? And so what is this? This is a mall. That's what it is. Nobody put a link up there just to share information. They put a link there because they want to get money from you one way or the other, right? That's why you advertise. That's why you put up a YouTube thing, right? Like today, for example, I just got back from traveling. I'm trying to advertise my courses because I want you to sign up for my courses. Why would I advertise my course if I don't want you to sign up for it? Right? So I'm going to do a video on YouTube. I put up something on YouTube so that you take my class. That's the whole point. And so, inshallah, if you take my class, it's going to take you to Jannah, inshallah. But most people are not trying to sell you things to take you to Jannah, are they? Right? So there's very important things. This is right? This, you're talking about sharr al-waswas al-khannas. This is sharr al-waswas al-khannas. So you're like, a'udhu billahi shaitan rajim, but you hear all this thing, right? Mikhail, what do you want to watch? We're here. What did you want to watch on my phone? Let's do this. Let's open my WhatsApp app. My what's it called? WhatsApp. What's it called? YouTube app. Where is my YouTube app? I don't have one. There's no YouTube app. Okay, let's go on YouTube then.
I'm gonna show everyone to show.
Okay, YouTube. Let's go on. Let's watch Ninjago on YouTube. Yeah. Don't diss Ninjago. I love Ninjago. YouTube. Ninjago. One second. Ninja, not ninja, Ninjago. Okay, 1 hour and 40 minutes. Let's play it. Can't play it. It says an error has occurred. Please try later. I can't play any videos on my phone. Okay, I don't have the YouTube app and I can't play any videos on my phone. Why? Okay, so you're there reciting Surah Al-Nas, and then on our phone, this is the biggest shaitan ever, right? This is the biggest shaitan ever, right? I know somebody who is, you can't judge anybody, but as far as I know, he's like super close to Allah, like very, very close to Allah. Okay, way before this stuff got in, he got into videos that he shouldn't have got into, and it escalated into his married life, and married life ruined every single thing in his life. And if the guy commits suicide, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he commits suicide, because it's like, I know what happened to him, right? So this stuff, right, it's like, you got to be pretty dumb if we recite Surah Al-Nas, and they're talking about what? What did they used to see in the desert? Things coming to the head, fine, things come to the head. It's like, what did they have compared to we have? All of it is kufr and sin. And all that because kufr and sin makes money. So we're trying to market stuff, right? Market stuff to you because it makes money, right? And everyone's trying to make money in the cleverest way. That's what we're trying to do, maximize profits. And so we've got to be very careful. This is the biggest, this is a marketplace. That's what it is. A web that, why does the internet is there to make money? It's not there for, right? That's what we're trying to do. And so, people make money through these ways, and it's trying to control your mind. So we do it for work. If you need to have a phone for work, you need to have a phone for work. If you need to be on the internet, you need to be on the internet. If you have to play a video, you have to play a video. But there's a big difference in work and everything else, right? And so we should be very, very, very careful, particularly around anybody younger than 18, right? All the information is coming out now that under 18, it's basically like giving crack to a baby and telling the baby, use it in a mature way. When is crack, cocaine, used in a mature way by a baby? It's not. That's not a reasonable thing. What do the doctors, doctors tell the kids, like sugar and a kid, they can't say no to sugar. They're hardwired to have sugar. So you tell a kid, don't take the chocolate, they will take the chocolate. It's not possible, right? And so this kind of thing is, you're hardwired to entertainment, TikTok, whatever this stuff. It's not safe for adults. I'm a 36-year-old man. It's not safe for me, let alone somebody who's younger than that, right? And so, people are like, oh, it's not a fitna. Like, what are you talking about? How is it not a fitna? Right? What kind of angelic material are you made out of that it's not a fitna? It's not realistic. The realistic is we're in a very dangerous situation. This is like going through an airport. What do you see in an airport? I had to be here. I'm going on Hajj, for crying out loud. Yeah, get in and get out. That's it. Get in and get out, right? I have to. My cousin lives in this place of town. I don't want to be there, and it's this kind of night. I didn't want to pick someone up at 10 o'clock at that kind of night, but it's a Saturday night. I had to pick him up. What do? You're going to see certain things, lower your gaze, but you want to stay there? You want to live there? No. So the same thing with the phone. This is a dangerous device. It is way, way more dangerous than a gun. Understand what it is. The screen, understand what it is, and use it in that way, right? A gun, you're gonna have a license. You're gonna have gun training. You have a ticket. You check, look twice. Is it unloaded? You ask, is there any bullets left? You deal with it in a certain way. If you keep it at home, it's locked up, etc. The same kind of thing. It's the same kind of thing. And this is because a gun, the worst it's gonna do is kill somebody, right? This is gonna do much worse to us. May Allah protect us. So, الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس Min al-jinnati nas. How does it end? One nas, right? So there's the jinn that whispered to you, but also nas, mankind whispered to you. And this is the biggest waswas, right? Okay, and also just the waswasa in the word in Arabic, waswasa also means like OCD. So it means waswasa, people have wasawis. Like, and so yes, people had wasawis in the past. It was something identified, like something clinically identified by people in, for example, churches and stuff like that. They identified, they call it scrupulosity. So nuns and priests, they used to have this thing called scrupulosity. They would be like, they have this thing called guilt, like, oh, God doesn't like me, therefore I have to do this, I have to do that. It's a thing that existed in the past. But you think it's more now? 100%. You're watching 4 hours of Gaza every single day, and you're wondering why you're stressed and depressed. Like, are you supposed to be watching that many dead babies, seeing that many dead babies? No. You're not supposed to do. You're supposed to see, oh my God, there's someone bleeding, pick them up and do something. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to sit there for 4 hours watching the news, right? And that's not a thing that you're supposed to do. So it's an addiction, and again, it's all there to turn you into metadata and turn metadata into money. That's the whole point of it. It's not there for you to help people, right? That's not what Fox News is not there for, to help you. None of these things are there to help you as a person, right? So we have to be very, very careful because we're causing ourselves all sorts of problems with these phones, right? So we should be very, very careful. الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس. So صدور الناس, the chests or breasts of people, right? Sadr. Right? And I'll just give you an example, classic example of tajweed, right? We mentioned Malik and Malik, right? Who's seen people pray like this? It's a classic thing today, you see people pray like this. Which madhab says you pray like this? None of them. Yeah, tons of people pray like this. You see people pray like this? So there's a hadith, yeah, pray like this, yeah, on the sadr. So there's a hadith that mentions the Prophet used to pray with his hands on his sadr. This is your sadr. So you read the hadith, it's pray like this. You don't find a single madhab that says that. The Shafi'i school says this, Maliki school says this, Hanbali school says this, and the Hanafi school says this. But the hadith says this. Right? So you can say, well, where does it come from? Did you study or did you just read? Same question. Same discussion. So today we have a new deen, and tomorrow we're going to have a new deen again. Right? Tomorrow you're going to be reading Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar fasalli li rabbika wanhar. Wanhar, one of the tafsir says, put your hand on your neck. So tomorrow, if you're going to pray like this because of a hadith, I'm going to pray like this because of the verse of the Quran. And you're going to say, that's strange. You say, well, that's strange too. Right? So where did you study? Who did you study with? Who taught you to pray like this? I read it in a hadith. Right? And when you read the description of how, certain scholars explain it, it's like you'll be shocked the logic. Because again, we think that we are empowered today to think. Actually, we're just more sheep than ever. If you see the logic that they will use, for example, one scholar, he says, there's a hadith that says this, and he said, one of the scholars of the past saw one of the scholars of the past pray like this sometimes in Taraweeh. So when you say one of the scholars of the past, that means basically nobody. Like nobody apart from, you could say nobody ever prayed like this apart from this scholar who saw this scholar once do it. Maybe he had something wrong with his stomach. I don't know what it is. But the point is so the logic, you'll be shocked because you think that something is like, okay, we're empowered to think today. Actually, there's a lot of things that are pretty dumb. In education, or Western education, a lot of things are very, very dumb, actually very unintelligent, like extremely unintelligent. But because we are made to think that we're intelligent, right? And so where does this all come from? Because here you're not studying with anybody. So you do use the mind, you have to use the mind, but you have to study with somebody, right? You have to have, who's your sensei, right? Judo. I remember my jiu-jitsu, one of my teachers in Jordan, he had this chain transmission, so-and-so from so-and-so from so-and-so. Another guy who's like a Muay Thai teacher, he says, I can't teach ninjutsu because I don't have the ijazah. I don't have license. The guy's not Muslim. They have a system, right? So the same kind of thing. Okay, so may Allah protect us. Okay, so min al-jinnati wan nas. Okay, إذا جاء نصر الله. So the same thing, the help of Allah. Nasrullah. لإلاف قريش. So ilaf. So this verse here, 9, it applies whenever we recite this surah. It's a short surah we should recite frequently. لإلاف قريش. This is, think to yourself, لإلاف California. So think how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to the Quraysh. You live in Saudi Arabia, where there is no petrol. and there is no central heating, okay, and there's no internet, and there is no flowing water to your house, and there is no modern healthcare, nothing. So you live basically in the desert. I can't imagine living in Mecca anyway, like even with central heating, with what's it called, AC right now. But just like, it's just super hot. You come out, like it hits you like really hard, right? And so imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to a people, they have no AC, no fuel, no this, but they have a trade because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the Kaaba and made it sacred and made the Arabs revere the people who look after it. So these people, they have a particular unique trade kind of sanctions because they go to Syria into the north and Yemen in the south without much trouble. Like they only have to take a month to go north and a month to go south, and they're able to have a lifestyle. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, because Allah has looked after and given security and given a life to the Qur'an and looked after them while they travel 1 month in the desert up to Jordan and Syria, and 1 month in the desert all the way down to Syria, right? Have you traveled in the desert? We traveled. Remember Mikhail traveling in the desert? Right? Remember what happened to Daddy's arm? Like my arms, like totally, like I thought I was like, okay, it's not a big deal, it's just hot. Like my skin came off like a snake's skin. Like I had to have, like, I thought like I had, like my soul, it was like swelling up like this, literally came off like a snake's skin. Like it was ridiculous. A ridiculous kind of temperature, right? That's the kind of travel that's Saudi Arabia. Yeah, it's like, so we're talking about, like 120, right? And the other day, my brother's in Kuwait, it's like 122, right? So it was like, here it's 106, like, heat waves. Like, it's 120 is normal. 120, 130, 140, right? That's just, so you're talking, so Allah's going to tell me that He's punishing me, and then He's going to tell me to say thank you. It's like crazy. So in reality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, yes, I've made life very easy for you. So what about San Francisco? What about California, Bay Area? Allah gave you a sea. Allah made you on the coastal America. Allah gave you access to this. Allah gave you internet. Allah gave you all these things. Allah gave you, for all of us, if there was no .com boom, we wouldn't be here, right? Our parents wouldn't have come, or we didn't come. They would have all these things. Allah set every single thing up. So if Allah is going to say, hey, I set things up for you, you owe me, what about us? Medical, this, that, Uber, every single thing possible, impossible. You're hungry. You can afford food. You're eating every day. When's the last time you didn't eat? Right? There was a sheikh was here. This is when did that sheikh come? Sheikh Zahid? 2 months ago, 3 months ago, he was talking about his own life. He said, yeah, there was a time where it's like I fell over, like I'm starving basically. He was in Guyana. He's like starving. His dad had to they're running out of money. They had to sell all the fish they have. And his dad was like, okay, I'll give you some of the fish. Like literally falling over. That's never happened, right? None of us have ever, I don't know if anybody ever been starving, but that's normal life for normal human beings. Starving, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us every single thing possible and impossible. Totally fine, right? You're totally fine. You have all these things. Just order this, order that. Everything's so easy. So we have to be very, very careful because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that to them. And saying, hey, you owe me because I set things up for you. What about us? Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, guys, get out of here. Right? I gave you AC. I gave you, like, I remember in England, we don't have AC. Right? I went to a hotel in London. It was a bit hot. My wife was like, okay, they need to turn the AC on. I said, we don't have AC. And they're like, what? We're paying for a hotel room without AC? I said, yeah, just open the window. Like, we don't have, like, I remember in my house in England, it's like, it's cold. Like, one room was warm, and the other it's cold. Like, you breathe, you can see your breath. That's normal. It's normal to be cold. It's normal to be hot. Right? California, it's not. Everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be 71.5 degrees when I want it, right? Everything's on time. Everything's all these things. It's not like that. For most of mankind, it's not like that, right? So this surah, the Ilayk al-Quraysh, it means I really owe Allah. I have right to education. Not everybody has right to education. Imam Bukhari, do you know why he studied? Why he became Bukhari? Because dad had money. His dad left the money and he spent it. Not everybody had not everybody had parents who had money. So he had the ability. He went to Mecca with his mom and his big brother, and he basically stayed in his parents. And his mom and brother went back. And so he studied. He had money, and that's what he lived off. But not everybody had the right to become Imam Bukhari. The way we think of Western culture, I have a right to pull. Yeah, that's what we think, right? Every kid has a right. It's like, you don't have a right. You have a right to basic Islamic knowledge. That's true. You have a right to know how to make wudu and pray. That's it. If you don't have any money, you don't have a right to know about zakat, because you don't. So the way we think about things is like we're God, and we deserve, right? When I was traveling, recently, just see there was this lady, there's an American guy, white American guy traveling with she looked Indian. She looked like original, but she's American, right? And so the way an American waits in line and the way a non-American waits in line is not the same. American waits in line like you can't treat me like this. Like I deserve not to wait. I deserve to be treated. So it's like assumed like you can't, it's like everyone else is very humble apart from Americans. Everyone else is like, yes, I'm waiting in a line, that's normal. But American culture is, I deserve. You do not deserve, you're a slave, you do not deserve anything. Right? And so, subhanAllah, this ayah, just think about it. You got to imagine living in Saudi Arabia before they found fuel. Before they had fuel. So there's no, you're everything traveling. It's crazy hot, everything's difficult. And Allah saying to them, wow, you guys owe me because I gave you what, a house, a building in the middle of nowhere. It takes me 1 month by camel. Right? How is that a blessing? Like, how does that make any sense? Because compared to nothing, compared to people who have nothing and are literally dying, they have everything. And compared to, so we live better than Fir'aun, right? We live better than Fir'aun. Fir'aun has a toothache. What's he going to do about it? Tell his magician to do something, and the magician says, "I predict that in 2 days the pain will go away and it'll go away." That's what he's going to do, right? Whereas you go take Tylenols. Can't afford it. Made a cow pay for it, right? You have blessings that nobody else has. Right? And so this is very, very important. Thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, going through a whole list, right? And Allah, as Allah mentions in the Quran, if you listed every single thing. So Allah's talking to those people back then, 1,400 years ago, did not have Tylenol, who did not have painkiller, did not have this, did not have that, all of these things, saying, if you listed all the blessings, you couldn't count them. What about us living in California? Right? We live a life. I remember visiting my brother in Scotland. It's like, oh, they're like, you got to pay for cash. Like, oh, you use cash in Scotland? Like, that's like weird, because you just get used to it. That's what happens. You become used to all these conveniences. And that's not normal life for normal people on earth. Okay. So ilafi Quraysh, ilafihim. So ilafihim as well. Their security, ilafihim. Rihlat al-shita, during the journey of. Okay, and then Rabb hadha al-bayt, the Lord and cherisher of this house. Okay, that's our of connections. Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alfi shahr. In this number 11, there are two. What time is Maghrib? 8:40. Okay. So we have two ofs in this sentence in number 11. There's one of in the English, but there's two ofs in the Arabic. I want you to try and find them. The night of. What does Qadr mean? Destiny or worth. Okay? Destiny. Or worth. But it does not mean power. Okay? It does not mean power. Okay? Laylatul Qadri. There's one more. Alfi Shahr. Good. So if we translated it literally, how should you translate it? Alfi Shahr. So in Arabic, you say 1,000 of a month. That's how you say it. 100 of a man. I saw 100 of a man walking down the street, meaning I saw 100 men. That's how you say it in Arabic. For 1,000 and for 100, you say 1,000 of a. So alfi shahrin, better than 1,000 of a month. So that's what you'd imagine in Arab. If he came up to you, say, how do you say 1,000? He says, how do you say alf? You say 1,000. How do you say month? You say, how do you say shahr? You say month. So he would say 1,000 of a month. You say, no. You say 1,000 months. You're like, huh? So the structure is different. So for 1,000 and for 1,000 and for 100, you say what? 100 of a man. That means 100 men. 1,000 of a tree. That means 1,000 trees. Okay, Rabbul Mashriqayn wa Maghribayn, the Lord, we did that already. Inna Rasula Rabbika, we did that already. Remember the noon was dropped, Rasulani, and then the Rasulah. So again, this is exactly, what does, who's, you're at college right now? High school? Ozone, do you know what ozone looks like? Yeah. Okay, you remember? It's a layer, right? So it's like, so basically, so usually it's like, oxygen has like 4, a valency of 4 or something like that, right? I think or a valency of 2. I think it's a valency of 2. So anyway, usually oxygen is like this, and it's just like connected like that. I think it's like that. So it's just that's what O2 looks like. That's how normal oxygen looks like. Okay? Whereas ozone looks like this. It's like the one double bond, right? Like that. That's what ozone looks like. So it's not actually, so this has a valency of 2, that has a valency of 2, but it's not stable, right? This one basically can disappear at any point, right? Something like that. You have the memory of Google, right? But that one's basically unstable, okay? So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make something unstable so that you can merge, right? That's what happens when we heat, trying to make something unstable, right? So Rasulullah, that looks weird. Like, what is Rasulullah? That's not a word. It's Rasulani. So it took off the noon, made it unstable, and now it can merge with Rasulullah Rabbika, right? Rabbika. We are the messenger. So notice how ajib, how they speak to Fir'aun. They're told to speak to Fir'aun in a nice way, and even the language. They said, they didn't say, hey, you're a slave. He said, we are the 2 messengers of your cherishing, loving, caring, nurturing owner. Not, hey, you're a slave. Listen, the way the language they use is to speak to him in a nice way, and they use the word Rabb. So they speak to him in a very nice way, right? And this is something I find very, very difficult. I'm a teacher, right, at school. It's very, very hard to talk to people in a nice way because people are not very nice, right? Like people are rude, right? It's hard to talk to your kids, right? You're nice to your kids, and you're like, okay, let's pray, right? It's pretty difficult, right? But that is the default way. Is like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala values. You're a very beautiful young girl. That's why you should wear a hijab, right? It's pretty difficult, and sometimes you have to say, hey, you have to wear a hijab because daddy says it. We've got to go, right? But that's the default, is the way we talk to Fir'aun, let alone anybody who's less than Fir'aun, is in a very, very nice and gentle way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you. God loves you. God cares about his creation. That's why he wants you to do something nice. God values you so much, he's given you rules to protect you. That's why you shouldn't, why shouldn't you eat pork? Because God loves you. Oh, okay. And he doesn't want you to eat something that harms you and is not beneficial for you. Oh, okay. As opposed to because it's in the Quran. Can you see the logic? Right? Often we translate, oh, because it's in the Quran. Like, okay, but what does that even mean? Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is he cares for you, nurturing you. He wants you to do what is good. This is not good for you. Look, it's not nice. Some things are clear, like alcohol. We do stupid things when we're drunk, right? Allah doesn't want to see you drunk. It doesn't look nice. That's why he says, I don't want you to do that because I care about you. Right? I don't want to see you drunk. It's not nice when you see drunk people. Right? Go ahead.
So this is for 2 people here to keep both messengers. If we were to change it to one, like singular, how would you change that?
Rasulu.
So
Inni Rasulu Rabbika.
like, would be just the or would
It would look like this. Rasulu. Ana Rasulu
yeah,
Rabbika.
just the them.
It would look like this. Rasulu.
Yeah.
Innama ana Rasulu Rabbiki in Surah Maryam. I am just the messenger of your Lord. رسول ربك لأهب لك. Okay. رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما. Okay, that's easy. ربكم ورب آبائكم الأولين. Notice the word أولين is agreeing, is describing the word آباء. Okay? So that's a complex structure we'll see much later on. But so ربكم is easy, the Lord of you, and the Lord of your forefathers, the first. So you cannot split, you can't put, in English you can say your early forefathers, that's fine. But you can't put awwalin after aba, because aba and kum are a of relationship. So you can't split it. So because you can't split it, you're going to have to put it afterwards. So in Arabic, you have to say your calf, the fast. You can't say your fast car, because that would mean between your and car, there would be a gap. So you can't do that. So the word awwalin is describing aba, but you cannot split from aba from kum, because they are coming together in the of relationship. And you can never split 2 words that are of. Okay, so awwalin is describing aba. Say it again. Yeah. So Rabbu abaikum. So abaikum is your forefathers. Al-awwalin, the early. Right. Okay. And that concludes, that unit 10 concludes. So again, we've actually seen all of this. We've already seen the of. Similarly, we had already seen the inna. and we had already seen prepositions. And we had already seen a lot of these things. So notice what he did is like the first unit was pretty easy, second unit was easy, then the third unit was super hard. It was like, oh my God, just threw a whole lot of ideas at us, and then he explained it all. Excuse me, the rest of the book is like that, but it's much easier, I think. There's like 2 hard things in the rest of the book, but otherwise it's like that. It's like 2 big concepts, and then just examples of it. Okay? Inshallah ta'ala. So inshallah, I think the hardest part is behind. I'd say we're in terms of like hard difficulty, we've gone through like 1/2 of the difficulty, right? And the rest of the book, you know, a lot. And the rest of the book, I have students online that, for example, they do like 3 units a week or something like that, or 4 units a week by themselves. So they basically would deal with the complex things and they just go through it. You know? Especially people who have done some. You did some Arabic before, yeah. You did some Arabic before, right? Anybody else? No, no. Long time ago. Long time ago. But anyway, so inshallah, we'll inshallah. So the default is next week we're gonna repeat this, because I don't know, unless we have the same thing. Maybe I'll put a question for the men next week. Who's traveling still next week? Most of them are still traveling. Then I think we should just go on to 11 then, because otherwise we're going to be waiting forever. This is recorded anyway, right? Yeah. Inshallah. Okay. So apologize. Well, actually, no apologies for the tangents, but important principle. Follow the rules of tajweed. You're going to be like, oh yeah, same thing. Tajweed, and apply it to every single thing. They're going to talk about hadith, they're going to talk about fiqh, they're talk about aqidah, talk about anything, like do the same thing. Who did you study with? Nobody. Okay, we have a problem. Right? Who'd you study with? A university. That's not a person. Right? A university is a structure around a person, right? But what is your person? سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك